Hello， 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。China and Canada are in the midst of a diplomatic tit for tat, with Canada expelling a Chinese diplomat based there and China following in kind. But what exactly is going on? Is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just getting his revenge for being embarrassed by President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit last year? Today, I'll explain in simple terms what is up. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Boreham in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. This week, Canada took the extraordinary step of basically kicking a Chinese diplomat based there out of the country. China followed in kind, asking a Canadian diplomat to leave China within 5 days. But what exactly is going on? Well, today I will explain and we'll answer the burning question of whether or not this is just Canadian PM Justin Trudeau's chance to get revenge on China for that super embarrassing dressing down he received from Chinese President Xi Jinping last year at the G20 summit in Bali. In case you have forgotten already, and I doubt you have, let's take a quick refresher on exactly what happened in Bali. So basically, China had already refused a request to meet with the Canadian PM. So Justin found an opportunity to pounce on President Xi with Canadian media in tow. That backfired dramatically, with President Xi politely cutting him off and telling him to act like a real leader and not go behind the scenes snitching to media. And Trudeau was left stung, to say the least, walking away in embarrassment with his tail between his legs. Let's take a look.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted. If there is sincerity on your part,
free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have to continue.
Let's create the conditions first.
I still love watching that video even to this day. So does it have any bearing on the current situation? Well, first, let's take a look at what is going on. Basically, it all started with this expose in Canada's Globe and Mail on May 1, with the publication claiming to have seen a sensitive and private report by the Canadian Secret Intelligence Service, the CSIS, which claimed the Chinese government is interfering in Canada's domestic affairs. The Globe and Mail report said, China sees Canada as a high priority target and employs incentives and punishment as part of a vast influence network directed at legislators, business executives, and diaspora communities in this country, according to a top secret intelligence assessment from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The CSIS report is an overview of Chinese government foreign interference in Canada, ranging from investigating a Conservative MP's relatives in China to harassing a mainland Chinese student in Canada who publicly supported Hong Kong's democracy movement. Now, it's exactly because of this news report about 10 days ago that pressure began to grow in government circles in Canada to take action against one of China's diplomats named Zhao Wei, who they claimed was targeting Conservative MP Michael Chong. The CSIS report they refer to, which is reportedly titled People's Republic of China Foreign Interference in Canada, a Critical National Security Threat, has not been seen by the public and was actually first released way back on July 20, 2021. Let's take a look at some of the pandemonium in Canada's House of Commons earlier this week as opposition MPs called for the government and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to take action.
The Prime Minister is so courageous, he might throw out Beijing's agent. A week after we found out, as a nation, that this agent had been threatening the family of a Canadian MP for a vote that he cast in this House The Prime Minister hasn't thrown him out. In fact, he extends credentials to that agent, allowing him to operate with impunity from our laws here in our country. Will the Prime Minister show some courage, answer the question, and kick this agent out today?
This is about a member of this House serving his country and the safety of his family in the balance. It's appalling that the Liberals are tarnishing this MP, but it's even worse that the diplomat who perpetuated it is still here with the rights that even Canadians don't have because it was given to him by that government. If there are no consequences, it'll just happen again. The diplomat needs to go back to Beijing, and it needs to happen now. Will they do it today?
So what are the claims exactly? Let's go back to the Globe and Mail. A national security source whom the Globe is not naming because they risk prosecution under Security of Information Act said the MP targeted was Conservative MP Michael Chong, and that Zhao Wei, a Chinese diplomat in Canada, was working on this matter. They claim the CSIS report accuses China of engaging in clandestine and deception operations. Its goal is to insert itself into diaspora communities and then mobilize them as political influencers and apply pressure in support of Beijing's interests. The CCP uses incentives and punishment to achieve its united frontwork objectives, instilling fear that criticizing the PRC will negatively impact bilateral relations and jeopardize access to the PRC market, CSIS said in the report. It is worth noting that the Globe and Mail report offers no actual evidence at all, just accusations. Of course, I have no idea whatsoever if the Security Service paper, which is reportedly 9 pages long, offers any evidence either, since it has not been made public. Now, China denies the allegations entirely, with China's Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson saying yesterday, China never interferes in other countries' internal affairs. The interference claims about China are unfounded. They are ideology and politically driven manipulation designed to slander and denigrate China. Canada's ill-founded decision to declare our diplomat persona non grata is an egregious move that violates the basic norms governing international relations and a deliberate blow to Canada's relations with China. He goes on to completely deny the contents of that secret CSIS report and its allegations. For quite some time, Canadian media and senior politicians have cited so-called CSIS classified documents to smear the Chinese diplomatic and consular missions in Canada. None of the accusations are based on facts. They are trumped up with hidden agenda. So as he mentioned there, Canada decided to name Chinese diplomat Zhao Wei persona non grata, which is basically a diplomatic term that means, in plain English, a person who is not welcome. Let's quickly take a look at what Trudeau had to say.
We will take whatever action is necessary to continue to protect our democracy and show that we're standing up for our values and our principles. This is a decision we took seriously, we took with careful consideration in order to do the right thing and expel the Chinese diplomat. We understand there is retaliation, but we will not be intimidated, and we will continue to do everything necessary to keep our Canadians protected from foreign interference.
As you are probably aware, diplomats working in foreign countries enjoy certain privileges in their roles, including diplomatic immunity, which means that they are exempt from the laws of their host country. When any country, and we'll use Canada for this example, labels a diplomat persona non grata, they are announcing that they are no longer welcome and that they will no longer have the same rights, for example, to diplomatic immunity. Countries can label diplomats persona non grata for any reason and without explanation. So that is exactly what China did in retaliation, labeling Jennifer Lynn Lalonde, consul of the Consulate General of Canada in Shanghai, persona non grata, and giving her until May 13 to leave the country. Now, many have accused China of being childish and playing games with this retaliation, but this is in fact quite a standard and definitely an expected response. So who is the Member of Parliament that Canada accuses Chinese diplomats of targeting? He is Conservative MP Michael Chong, who is sternly anti-China. When the Globe and Mail approached him about being named in the secret CSIS report, he said he was unaware of his inclusion. Mr. Chong, reached by the Globe, said he had no knowledge of this. He said he has relatives in Hong Kong. He was hit with sanctions by China in March 2021 after sponsoring the parliamentary motion on genocide, and has been careful not to contact his relatives since. This is more evidence of the PRC's meddling in Canadian democracy, and more evidence for Ottawa to take immediate action, Mr. Chong said. Again, no evidence is put forward and no concrete allegations that he was targeted in any way are explained. Once the Conservative Party knew that Mr. Chong was included in the CSIS report, they put pressure on the Trudeau government to take action, and that chaos spiraled into that Chinese diplomat being asked to leave. Now Canada's opposition MPs are accusing Trudeau's government of doing nothing since the secret CSIS report was released in 2021, especially because they never notified MPs mentioned as alleged targets in the report. Trudeau then quickly called Mr. Chong for a briefing, but the opposition says that's too little, too late. And that basically answers the question, is Canada kicking a Chinese diplomat out of the country? Revenge from Trudeau being snubbed by President Xi at last year's G20 summit? You might have guessed already that the answer is a decisive no. This saga has put serious pressure on Trudeau and his government, and until this week they had not acted on the CSIS report claiming Canada was being targeted by Chinese operations to interfere. Now, why is that? Well, as I mentioned before, the contents of that secret report have not been made public, and they weren't even given to opposition members of parliament who were mentioned as alleged targets. Why? Well, it is very possible that Trudeau himself knows the claims are spurious, and that the evidence is dodgy, and that further action was not necessary. And don't forget, China does have a very serious non-interference policy, whereby it pledges not to interfere in the governance of foreign countries, because it knows firsthand just how devastating that can be following the 100 years of humiliation, where China was basically plundered and smashed into poverty during the Opium Wars by the British, who were intent on selling illicit drugs here. Well, that is basically it for today, you guys. As usual, I'd love to know what you have to say. Do you think the CSIS report has any real evidence of Chinese interference? Do you think China should retaliate further? Let me know down below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.